the sweet sounds of summer, and there's no better way to enjoy them than with the refreshing taste of frozen drinks from Tim Hortons, like our new mixed berry smoothie, perfect for relaxing in the park, or the new tropical orange fruit chill, great for enjoying the ball game, or just spend a day at the beach with the new watermelon frozen lemonade. Well, time for another one. Chill out with any of our small frozen drinks for only $2. Try one at your neighborhood Tim's today. At participating U.S. restaurants. Offer available for a limited time.
Back to the Future, Quantum Leap, and Biblical History collide in an Ember in time. Coming up next, right here on The Right Stuff.
You are listening to the best, the only place to be on Tuesday night. That's right, you're listening to The Right Stuff, and you're at the right place at the right time. From England to Canada, from Detroit to the Poconos, we are showcasing Christian authors worldwide, giving you tips, tools, techniques, and resources for you, the writer, to hone and perfect your craft. Tune in every Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time right here on WPJC 104.5. And your host, Parker J. Cole.
I am so glad you're able to join me today for this edition of The Right Stuff. I am just excited and thrilled to be talking about an Ember in time, and we'll get to that in just a few moments. First of all, I want to talk to you really quickly about a conference I went to recently called Romance Slam Jam. Romance Slam Jam is a celebration of readers and authors, especially authors of African American and multicultural books. And I had never been to a Slam Jam before, and I had mentioned to you on the show twice, once in March and then last week with the keynote speaker, Beverly Jenkins. When I went to Slam Jam, I was just so enriched and helped by so many authors, so many women who wrote different genres of romance, different various levels of heat. And we all were brought together by the love we have for the romance genre. I came back from Romance Slam Jam feeling invigorated, getting a new network started with new authors I hadn't heard of before, and just having a great time being around other authors who are just as passionate about romance as I am. Even though I write Christian romance, some of them may write erotica, some may write sweet, some other type of romances. We were all just joined together by that love of romance. And so I just want to thank the coordinator of the event, Emma Watson, who started that organization 21 years ago. And if you want more information on Romance Slam Jam, I encourage you to go to romanceslamjam.org. You'll be blessed by what you find out about the organization. It's a premier site for African American and multicultural writers of African American romance and multicultural romance. I think if we have more events out there where we have authors and readers meet together, I met so many readers who voraciously ate these type of books. They ate them. They loved them so much. It was great to just sit and talk with them, talk to other authors, get some advice, get industry news about the industry. It was just a great conference. And if you go to my website, you can see a few of the pictures I had on there. I didn't get too many pictures because I was having such a good time. It was located here in Detroit during the past weekend. So those of you who follow me, you know, Saturday show, I wasn't here, but I had a great time. And I just want to let you know that from the bottom of my heart for Romance Slam Jam, thank you so much for a wonderful event. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. When we come back to the future, Quantum Leap and biblical history collide in an Ember in time. What do I mean by that? Well, stay tuned right there. If you want to call in, you certainly can by calling in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Or you can hit me on Twitter at ParkerJCole, #RightStuff, with your questions and comments. We'll be going to a quick short break, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Have you read the latest issue of SORMAG Digital, the award-winning literary magazine for multicultural readers and writers? SORMAG Digital is available quarterly and showcases interviews with the best authors in multicultural literature. SORMAG Digital features craft and business articles for those interested in writing. If you're looking for a good book, check out our book reviews on what's hot in multicultural literature. For writers looking for new readers to get in front of, SORMAG Digital is the perfect place to introduce your book. We offer advertising spaces that fit your promotional budget. Get your free subscription on SORMAG.com or order a print issue on MagCloud.com. If you would like more information about SORMAG Digital, check us out on SORMAG.com or contact us at SORMAG@yahoo.com. SORMAG Digital is the magazine for multicultural readers and writers.
Authors, are you looking for a new way to get your book in the hands of new audience of targeted buyers? Then a virtual book tour is for you. Right now, virtual book tours is an excellent opportunity for you to introduce your book and who you are as an author. Launching your book is very important. A virtual book tour will connect you with readers. We at WNL, we specialize in book tours, book blasts, radio tours, cover reveals, and Facebook chat. Promoting and marketing your book is what we do. Online publicity, the exposure and the publicity is what you need. Let us help you reach new readers and a new audience. We take care of everything so you don't have to. We set up the tour for you. We connect you with bloggers to advertise your book by way of interviews, guest posts, and reviews. If you are an author of a newly published book, have an upcoming release, or just want to give a previously published book new life, a virtual book tour is your answer. Check our tours out at www.wnlbooktours.com. Visit me on Facebook. I am the owner, Paulette Harper.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday nights, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, so happy you're here with me to talk about our show at Ember in Time. And like I said before the break, Back to the Future, Quantum Leap, and biblical history collide in this book. And it's a very unique way that our guest co-host and contributor did this. And so I want to share that information with you. But I'm going to have to tell you, it's not exactly what you think. So don't worry about it as we get into our topic here. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest co-host and contributor today, Anna Aquino. Anna, how are you doing today?
I am super fabulous. Thanks so much for having me on.
And thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us on the show today. I never take it lightly when our guest co-hosts and contributors are with us. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's joy. It's always a joy.
You know, Anna, one of the things that I like to do as we talk to our listeners is have you introduce yourself to us. And I can, of course, read your bio, but that's in your words to me. But on your own words, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I always say that I am a super fabulous woman of God, wife, ninja mom of two, published author and guest minister. I originally was from Central Ohio. My husband and I felt called to move to Florida, and so we were in Florida for 13 and a half years, and then here 2 years ago we moved back to the Central Ohio area by God's design, not ours. I was like, God, you just must be kidding me. I'm not going back to Ohio, but God knows what he's doing. And I crazy love what I do. I love to write. I love to preach. I love to do what God has called me to do, and it's been a journey, and it's just an honor to get to do anything with that.
Now, you said that you're a minister and a ninja mom. So what do you mean by ninja mom?
I wrote a devotional that was released last year called Confessions of a Ninja Mom. And it is a 40-day devotional basically about just empowering women to be the best mothers they're called to be. And it started out as really a joke. It's a long story, but to make it short, I was doing some work with a film company, and it didn't end well because the integrity of the company just wasn't where I wanted to be with, kind of thing. And there were some things that happened, and when the guy got mad at me, and when I kind of called his attention to it, I was told that I was nothing but a mom, and that was all I was ever going to be. And a really good friend of mine started to say, well, you're a ninja mom. And it just kind of stuck. And so as a joke, I took this old devotional that I had it for years on the back shelf that I had never done anything with, and we turned it into a ninja mom. It has all these ninja-isms. And so that's why I always say I'm a ninja mom.
I find that hysterical. I just actually find that hysterical.
Well, it's being a mother is like one of the worst. Like, people just look down on you. Well, you're just a mom. Like, yeah, you know what? I am not just a mom. I am just excelling in that role, and my kids are awesome. And so, you know,
yeah.
I'm doing what God called me to do. Anyway.
Exactly. And I like how you just let us know that, you know, being a mom is not just your run-of-the-mill type of job. You're a ninja.
No.
You have your secret weapons or tactics. You know how to hide and get the enemy off your back when you have to. So I'm really glad that you expressed what ninja mom is. So let's kind of dig into a little bit about your career. So how long have you been writing?
Oh, my goodness. I'll try to make this short. For those of you who have not been familiar with me before, I should have died in a car accident when I was 2.5. It's a really long story, but I was thrown from the window, and my aunt, who was in the car and pregnant at the time, saw angels leave the scene. She said, I'm following them, and then they got everybody out of the car and then realized I was not in the car, and they found me wedged underneath a fence post.
Wow.
So there's no earthly reason I'm alive. There really isn't. And so being raised with that story, I think that it taught me early on. I mean, my mother faithfully took us to a Lutheran church, and it taught me early on there was a God, there was a purpose for my life, and he was supernatural, and he was real. And so when I was 12 or so, I was crying out to God on my bed. And now you got to understand that the Holy Spirit just wasn't like I was Lutheran. I was raised Lutheran, and we just didn't really celebrate that. We didn't know who that was. And I was crying out to God on my bed, and I knew Jesus came in the room. I knew where I was looking was where he was standing. Although I did not physically see him, I knew he was standing there. And he said, Anna, I've called you in the ministry. Now, that's the first time I've ever heard that, which is like, what? And so about 16, and people expect this story to be really supernatural, so we can't even try to make it supernatural. I went to go see the movie Forrest Gump, and I do 100% believe that movies can speak to us, but I saw the movie Forrest Gump, and in Forrest Gump, it had all these scenes of him in Vietnam. And my dad was a grunt soldier in Vietnam. The life expectancy of a grunt soldier was about 2 weeks, and my father survived an entire tour.
Wow.
And I grew up with these amazing stories of, again, there's no earthly reason he survived. And it was like something burned on the inside of me. That's the best way I can explain it. Your dad has a story. You need to tell it, and this is your destiny. And I don't know how to explain that other than I knew I had to tell my dad's story. So I was so cute. At 16, I was like, I'm going to write this book. Now, you have to understand, I had been told before that I couldn't write a sentence. I had been like, there was just no earthly way. My mom jokes now. She's like, you know what? You always had a really good imagination.
Yeah.
But like, I was never this wonderful English writing person. And then just like, I was going to write this book. I was going to write this book. I was going to write this book. Well, I tried to start writing it, and of course, I didn't have. At the time, it was just, there were still some things that needed to be worked in me. Let's put it that way. I started 30 pages in. I stopped. I was frustrated. But every time my dad were to talk for the next probably 5-6 years, I'd start taking notes. I probably somewhere have a little handheld cassette tape of him talking. I mean, I would diligently try to keep track of some of his stories. And so I found myself, you know, still with this ministry's call, still knowing I'm supposed to write, didn't know what to do with any of this. My husband and I met supernaturally. It's a really long story, but met supernaturally. We were moved across the country. I was pregnant with my oldest daughter, and I was frustrated because I was like, God, I know you called me to write this book. I know you have more for me, but I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I love sharing this part of this story. I was at church, and this woman began to preach, and she was like, some of you are cursing your very destinies because of the power of your words. You know, God spoke, the world was into existence. And he said, and she was saying, out of your mouth, you're saying, I can't do the very thing you know God has called you to do. And that just, like, it broke me. I was like, you know what, that's so me, because I know God had called me to write this book, and I was like going, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And so I went before the altar, and I repented, and in the car, God showed me how to write my first book. He usually does that with me. I'll get, like, the first line, and then it would just download it. It was done within 2 months, rough draft. Now, that book has not been fully published, but I had a short story about it published some years ago, and so anyway, I just started getting turned down everywhere. I'm sure everybody understands that one. I started writing and getting turned down everywhere, and writing and turned down everywhere, and I spent years in that place, absolutely years, and I just kept writing. I was just like, you know what, this is what God's called me to do, and I'm raising my children, and I'm writing, and eventually doors opened. Took a while, but eventually doors opened.
What I really appreciate about your story, Anna, is the supernatural aspects of it, because in today's world, there are people who don't believe the supernatural exists. And so because they don't believe the supernatural exists, they don't have any expectancy for anything supernatural to take place. Now, mind you, I always believe in the supernatural, so there's no problem there. But I can see how some Christians, because they're so grounded in reality, they can't see the supernatural working in the fact. And you use your life story to say, yes, the supernatural does happen, especially when you mention about the car accident, when you mention about your dad being in Vietnam, when you mention all those things, that is a supernatural acting in the reality. That's supernatural acting in the natural world. That's why it's called supernatural. And there are some people, you can tell them this, but until they experience a supernatural touch for themselves, they won't really get a grasp of it. And as I listened to your responses, I could see how diligently that's folded into your book, An Ember in Time. We'll get to that a little bit later on our show. My next question I wanted to ask you before we go to our first break is this. When you were called into ministry, what did that feel like? Because, and I mentioned this on my show before, you know, women being in ministry is in hot pursuit right now. You got the complementarians pulling at the egalitarians, pulling at the complementarians. It's all in the flux right now. So go ahead, tell us about that.
You have to understand, I did not grow up. I love my family. They're amazing, my earthly family, but I did not grow up in a environment that was ministry-oriented. It wasn't like my parents were, you know, on the platform, and they weren't pastors, they weren't preaching. You know, I love them, but that was not the environment I was raised in. So when God showed up in my room, God bless them, they tried. You know, it was like, what? You know, I was probably, you know, what? And at least I was raised in a Lutheran background that accepted women as ministers. However, having said that, I went to, and this is no hard feelings, I love these people, but I went to a Baptist youth group for years and had gotten into an argument with a lady while the leaders watched her try to justify to me why it was unbiblical for me to be in ministry. And you know, we all know those scriptures are twisted and turned. And, you know, I think that women in ministry have to be a certain breed to just be like, you know what, I know what my daddy said. And I do have a covering, you know, my husband, I am undercover through pastors, you know, and I believe in being accountable. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what God's telling me to do. And it's not that I don't heed those scriptures, but I don't manipulate them either. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
I do, and right now that's such a huge state of flux. And you know, I follow a few Christian feminists online, and some of their arguments are rather compelling. And I still reserve judgment on some things, but like I said, I am all for women being ministers. I'm all for that, and I believe women have an ability to reach a certain sect of our population that men just can't. And there are reasons for that. And I was thinking how that nurturing spirit of a female can be so much more better than the quote-unquote stereotypical authoritative figure of a man in a pulpit. And I think some women who have been hurt by men in the past will be more receptive to a female. I could think of many different situations where a woman pastor would be much more advantageous to a congregation than men. But that's just me. I'm not going to keep my thoughts.
I think that, you know, God is neither male nor female, even though we give him male attributes. But there's also female attributes. And honestly, and I might get a bunch of emails for this one, I believe that the best operation in ministry in a church is a husband and a wife team, because you have both.
Yeah.
But there are times where I've seen where women are appointed and that's anointed and that's cool, and there's times where it's men, and I think that we get so hung up in the Christians. You're just going to get me on a soapbox here, and I'll try to make it quick. We get so hung up on these kinds of things within the church that it's causing disunity, and a house divided can't stand. And we just sit around and we argue about, the supernatural, women speaking in tongues, you name it, or tattoos okay, but her dress was not 5 inches past her knees. I'm not saying to be hoochie, but you know what I'm saying.
I know
and
exactly
what you're saying. And we sit around and we argue and we're judgmental, and it's squelching the kingdom upon the earth. There is no reason. There are so many believers that are saying they're believers out there. There is no reason why Satan should be prevailing in the world. Because if the Christians would shut up, sorry if I offended somebody there, but be quiet, work together, come into unity, then we would actually begin to see God and move upon the earth. And the reason why, I'm not saying he's not, but the church is just so busy against each other that we're not moving forward.
It's interesting you say that, and I'm going to make one last comment, and then we're going to go to break. I remember a young lady in my church, they had some kind of dress code or whatever, and to me, the woman looked fine. You know what I mean? She looked fine, but it said something about her dress, and she had just joined the choir, and we was always excited to get people in the choir, and she was there for like 2 Sundays and was gone. And I remember thinking to myself when they critiqued her on her dress, I remember thinking to myself, is that really that important? It wasn't like and mind you, she had on pants. And she had on a shirt. And I was like, what is the problem? But because I grew up in churches for such a long time, I get used to church folk. I don't let church folk bother me. I don't let stuff like that bother me. But at the same time, I could see some other people going, I just want to sing in a choir. Why are you looking at what I'm wearing? I could see that. And that's just so important as we talk about this, because it's going to lead into our book, An Ember in Time. And it's hysterical how this is going to lead into our book, An Ember in Time. So you want to stay tuned right there as we get closer and closer to talking about Ember in Time. But feel free to call in. You can always call in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, #RightStuff, with your questions and comments. We're going to go ahead and take a quick short break. When we come back, more with Anna Aquino and An Ember in Time.
Are you a reader looking for more compelling Christian fiction? Maybe something a little more edgy or a bit more real? Are you tired of most Christian fiction shying away from the truth and settling for a rose-tinted view of the world and its issues? Or are you an author who has a compelling story to tell, but you're afraid it doesn't jive with today's brand of Christian or secular fiction? Are you tired of Christian publishers telling you that your content is too edgy? Or maybe you've tried submitting your content under the radar to secular publishers only to be told your themes are a bit too religious. We invite you to take a look at the Crossover Alliance. We are an online publishing company that specializes in edgy Christian speculative fiction with Christian themes and real-world content. Our company is formed from authors and readers just like you who are breaking into the mainstream and Christian markets with this compelling genre. Head over to the www.thecrossoveralliance.com for all the details on who we are, what we do, and what we accept. Right now, if you sign up for our email newsletter, you'll receive a free digital copy of our first short story anthology. Check us out today and help us spread the word about the Crossover Alliance, where light shines brighter in the darkness.
Has God called you to be a pastor or leader, but the men and women in your church won't let you speak because you're a female? Is the call to minister strong on your life, but you hesitate because you think the Bible tells women to be silent in the church? I'm Jory Micah, and I am here to tell you, sister, that together we can break the glass steeple. I fight and advocate for gender equality in the church, and there are others with me who are holding up the banner. Subscribe to my blog at JoryMicah.com for interviews, commentary, and uplifting words to give you the motivation to answer the call to ministry. Together, we can break the glass steeple and inspire all of God's children, men and women alike, to answer the call to ministry.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J., and her guests right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. Again, so glad you're here joining me as we talk about An Ember in Time with my wonderful guest, co-host, and contributor today, Anna Aquino. Again, Anna, thank you so much for joining us on the show, talking about these various things that all relate to An Ember in Time. I know some of our guests are wondering, okay, when are you going to get to the part about quantum leap, Back to the Future, and biblical history colliding? But before I do that, Anna, I want to read a couple of responses because I sent out a really fun question to our listeners. I just basically asked them, if you could go back in time in biblical history as an observer, what time would you pick? So we got some really interesting responses. So Kathy from Bethel, Missouri said, I know this is cliche, but I go to Bethlehem for the Nativity. I am fascinated by this moment when history on earth intersected with the plan of eternity. I just want to stand behind the shepherd and peek in. Kathy, thank you so much for your comment. And then Leah from Visalia, California says, I would love to be there when Eve is tempted by the enemy to eat from the tree of knowledge. Maybe there could be a way to stop Eve from being tempted that way so we could still live in the Garden of Eden today, and Jesus would not have had to come and be tortured and killed by us. Leah, thank you so much for your comment. And then David in Springdale, Arkansas said the time of Moses and the Exodus. And then Erica said, I would like to see Nathanael's face when he asked Jesus how he knew him. And Jesus said, I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you. And I would also like to see Jonah thrown up out of the fish and then see him running to Nineveh. And that's Erica in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And don't forget, you can call in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air. Or again, hit me on Twitter, Parker J. Cole, #RightStuff. And so as we give our juices going, getting ready to talk about An Ember in Time, I want people to know what a day is like for you and as a writer. So what does your typical day look like for you when you write?
That's so funny. I'm a huge history dork, if you haven't figured that out. I love history. So when I'm preparing, you wouldn't have guessed. Not at all. This is actually the first series I've done in biblical history, but I love the research stage. And so my kids will laugh at me. I'll go to the library and get like everything out on that topic. I will even get fiction books out on that topic, just just to get me like geared up to write. And so eventually I have to make myself stop doing that because I get so lost in that phase if I let myself. But my typical day is, you know what, as I said, I'm a ninja mom, and I have a husband that works second shift at the moment. And so I'm being mom, and I'm being wife, and I'm, making lunch, and I'm running my oldest daughter around who's 14 years old, and she's in high school part-time and in college part-time. So I'm kind of doing errands, and then at the end of the day, when the family's asleep, is when I'm writing. And so most of my books were written, have been written, and continue to be written from like 10 o'clock at night to midnight. I'm really big on. I've been doing this long enough to know that 10 pages in fiction is about what I can do with ease at a sit down. And so I sit down and write 10 pages, and then I'm done for the day. It's like I won't push myself. Now, there are days that I have come back and been like, no, I got to get this one part out. But I just sit down and write 10 pages. If I'm writing nonfiction, I also write nonfiction. I sit down and write a chapter. And then I'm done. I'm not one of those writers that sits for like 6 hours a day. I think Kep Follett does that. No, I'm not. I will sit down for a section at a time, and that's what, I tell people all the time, how do you write a book? You do it one bite at a time. So you do one chapter at a time, because people always ask, how do you eat an elephant, that old Indian proverb. You do it one bite at a time. Well, that's how you write a book.
I like how you said that, because, this show is always about encouraging authors to write. And I know Stephen King said that he writes, I think, all day long for like 10, 12 hours a day.
Yeah, no.
And he works every single day except for his birthday. I think he said something like that. I may have it wrong. Don't slap me if I did. But there are some authors who take it very seriously. But having a manageable goal each day will get that book written. And I like that you said that. And I hope someone who's listening that has dropped into them so they'll know, hey, I don't have to write 6,000 words in a day. I could just write 10 pages and be happy with that, because that is manageable. Because if you think about it, you do 10 pages a day. Let's say take off Sunday and take off Saturday. Let's say just Monday through Friday, 10 pages a day. You've got 50 pages. Next week is 100 pages. Next week's 150. Guess what? You got a book going, or a novella. Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad you mentioned that. How have readers described your writing style?
I think, it's the same way when I preach. A lot of times people say she's funny, she's a pastor, we don't know what she is, but she's entertaining. I think it's the same thing in writing. You will get a very real, even if it's fiction, if it's nonfiction, it's real, it's funny, and people appreciate that honesty. And that's just how I approach things. I'm not a person that likes to be fake. I'm not a person that likes to, piddle with all this other extra stuff. You get something that is just real, direct, and approachable and funny.
I love humor. Humor, I think, makes the world go around. I remember one time I was in a massive argument with my husband, and he did something stupid, and it made me laugh so hard. And then he reluctantly laughed, too, because it was so funny, and it completely dissipated the argument. And I love laughter. I love to laugh. And now I can't even think what the argument was about. That's how important the argument was. It's probably something silly.
Usually the way it goes.
Yeah, it usually does. And so it's hysterical how humor just really brings about a change in people's attitudes in their mind, because when you laugh, you release a lot of tension, you release stuff. We're not talking like those people who laugh at something bad. We're not talking about that, but just good old belly-rubbing humor. I love that type of thing. So before we get into your story, I know our listeners just wanted to get into that. Again, this show is all about encouraging authors. So go ahead, tell us a resource you would recommend to writers, and this could be for seasoned writers or novice writers. So go ahead, tell us a resource you can recommend to us.
That's a really good question. I'm really big in social media. It's probably not exactly what you were looking for. But I just for kicks and giggles went and got a certification in social media a few years ago, and I think that it was a great thing to do as a writer. And one of my greatest loves is an app called Hootsuite, HOOTSUITE, where I can link my social media together, and I don't have to babysit it all the time. Because I don't know about you, but that was one of the arguments I've gotten into several times with my spouse, because he's like, hello, you need to get off the phone. And you're spending too much, we're trying to have a family time and I'm trying to answer a tweet. And so I've had to learn that balance. And that's and it's probably not exactly a writer resource, but has been one of the greatest things that has freed up a lot of energy, because time is a currency. We don't want to spend it all on social media, but we still need to do what we got to do.
Exactly. I think balance, I know it's kind of, people use it secularly, but I think the Lord also brought balance to us. He balances everything, and he understands that, because if you think about it, whatever you believe about 7 days or millions of days, I don't care. But when it comes to when he created the earth, he did it in sections. He did it in time. He didn't do it all in one instant. He could have, but he didn't. And so that balance, I think, is so necessary. So let's go ahead and dig into your newest release. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about it, and then what I'm going to do is read a couple more responses we received from our listeners.
Sure. I was at a time, a lot of my fiction that's unpublished yet is that historical romance that is so common in Christian fiction right now. And I was at a time where it was just like, you know what, I'm not breaking forth into fiction. I want to do something completely outside of the box. What's outside of the box? And I had begun to pray about this and pray about this and pray about this. And my family, I've always been a huge Quantum Leap Back to the Future fan, and my family and I were watching the entire series of Quantum Leap on Netflix at the time, and my husband and I just started to joke. It was like, well, you want something different. What if you did this in biblical history? And it was like, well, I write romance,
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean, what do I do something in biblical history? And so we just went back and forth, and as soon as I knew, it was just like this story just kind of, it was rolled out. I just kind of sat on me for a while, and it is so, I love this book. I love this series so much. I cried when I finished the series, because it started that I was just writing the first book, which is Ember in Time, and then I just loved it so much I had to come back to it, and I just loved it so much I had to come back to it again. So the first one, and that's the best way I can describe it, Quantum Leap meets Back to the Future in biblical times. It opens with this very disgruntled pastor. His name is John Stevens, and John Stevens is just convinced that God has left him. He's just convinced he needs to leave this church that has sucked out his passion for life, and it is real. For pastors especially, they get some good chuckles out of it. Some little twerky things about, he opened up a Facebook account and the whole church was convinced he's having an affair, and
yeah.
he sucked out his passion for life, and so he notices, and there's this intro scene where two angels are sitting and talking to him while he's grumbling and complaining. And basically God had given him an angel to come to him and take him anywhere in biblical history. And that's kind of the opening, that he gets to go view anywhere in biblical history. And so this angel shows up in his office one Sunday morning. Where do you want to go? And he wants to go see David kill Goliath. And so they go through this, and David killed Goliath, and he was told not to mess with anything in biblical history. Long story short, he accidentally trips a little girl, doesn't think a thing of it, and it happens to be Bathsheba. Bathsheba was so sheltered as a child. Bathsheba thinks she's in love with this stranger, and she refuses to marry Uriah. So he has to go back and convince her to marry Uriah, or he could unwind all of biblical history. So, yeah.
What I found so fascinating about Ember in Time was, first of all, the opportunity to be given a chance to go back through biblical history and just watch what happened. There were so many. You kind of go like, can I just sit and go through the whole Bible? That's what you would want to do. Let me sit and go through the whole Bible. But, of course, there are some of us who just want to see things more up close than others. Like some people had different responses. I know we did get a response just in regards to this question from Danielle in Shreveport, Louisiana. She said, I will go back to the time of the announcement of Acts 1:8 and partake in Acts 2, the upper room Holy Spirit experience, to be able to physically understand, witness, and partake of the first moment when the Holy Spirit made his arrival within the believers. Danielle, thank you so much for your comment. And then Sheila in Detroit says, there are so many things I could name, but the one thing is certain is when Jesus ascended to heaven, the look on the apostles' faces, and Noah, how God kept them, parting of the Red Sea, the beginning of God's earth and the garden, how God made provision for mankind that we messed up. Sheila, thank you again for your comment. And then Alexis in Detroit says, I'd want to see walking on the water and the pillar of salt moment. Alexis, again, thank you for your comment. If you want to weigh in, you can simply call in at 646-668-8485 and then press 1 to be live on air, or you can hit me on Twitter at Parker J. Cole, hashtag PJC Show, with your questions and comments. We are just delving into an Ember in Time, so stay tuned right there. We'll be back in a very few moments.
Don't go anywhere. More with Parker and her guests on the Right Stuff Radio Show. We'll be right back.
Question: if you write a book, everybody will rush out to buy it. Obvious answer: no. If you were a celebrity or if you had a huge marketing budget, then maybe you can get a lot of exposure for your book. Another solution would be to check out joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com is a promotion and marketing service with access to over 1/3 followers on Twitter. joeytweets.com has 3 packages available to fit any budget. That's joeytweets.com. joeytweets.com. Get some serious exposure for your books.
What's up, y'all? This is your bro, Robbie Newborn, Christian rap evangelist, ministry leader, and founder of GDT Walking Out Ministries, a drug awareness, peer mentoring, and counseling ministry that spreads a message of hope to the hopeless, bringing the gospel to the street. I am a recovery specialist, intervention, drug prevention professional, so if you're looking for a counselor or counseling or someone to just talk to, please call me at 484-525-9832. My website is www.rdsjr.com. God bless you all from all of us at GDT, Walking Out Ministries, and Team God. Peace and Christ love. Come on.
God gives humans the gift of making amazing stories to glorify Him. At speculativefaith.com, our ministry is to help fans explore fantasy, science fiction, supernatural stories, and beyond from an intentional and biblical Christian perspective. We share daily articles and have extensive archives tackling hot topics like end times beliefs, the art of writing, creative excellence in the Christian subcultures, discernment, sex, magic, Harry Potter, and space aliens and the Bible. If you are a parent or anyone else with a discriminating palate, our reviewers explore fantastical novels, movies, television, and games in light of God's beauty, goodness, and truth. Want to find Christian stories? The Spec Faith Library lists every fantastical novel we can find from a Christian author. It's all part of our mission to discern, engage, and enjoy fantastical human creativity in honor of our Creator, Jesus Christ. SpeculativeFaith.com, exploring fantastical stories for God's glory.
Hi, I'm Sherry with the Lemonade Stand. As the weather warms, your risk of exposure to mosquito and tick-borne illnesses increases. Please keep these tips in mind when outdoors. Wear light-colored clothing, apply repellent, avoid high grassy areas, check yourself after returning, and remove any attached ticks promptly only with a tick removal device or tweezers, avoiding any home remedies. This has been a community service announcement courtesy of the Lemonade Stand.
We're back, and you're hanging out with the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. and her guests, right here on The Right Stuff.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. You're listening to The Right Stuff here on WPJC 104.5. I am the queen of Tuesday night, Parker J. So glad you're here with me as we talk about An Ember in Time with my guest, co-host, and contributor, Anna Aquino. And again, thank you for being with us. We have just started to delve into her book, An Ember in Time. And, you know, Anna, I love how you use something so small to make such a huge impact in this story, because in this story he's watching David and Goliath, and then he had to go do something. I forgot what it was. He had to go do something, and then a little girl tripped over him.
Yes.
Get something food, right? Was it get food? I think he was hungry.
He went to go get him lunch because the casserole his wife was making wasn't heaven sent.
Yes, it was not heaven sent. And a little girl just tripped over him, and we don't think nothing of it. Just how little bitty things can be so impactful. We don't think about that, and that's why I like the beauty of your story is that one little thing, one thing that we do, one thing that we say, and recently I've been struck by the power of words, and I don't like to say that a lot because a lot of people like to get mystical with it, like spells and weird stuff like that. Right. And I think when we say our words, we should be careful of what we say to people. And mind you, I am not talking mystical stuff. I need to reiterate that a lot because some people think, well, you're talking mystical, and I'm not. Just being aware of what you say to people, being aware of how you treat them. It's just so important. So I like how you use, even on your synopsis, you say just a small flower changed everything. And I like that. And so as you go through this story, what are some of the things that you're exploring with that?
I think that there are so much. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not, but there is so much that goes in. There's this one scene towards the end that everybody who's ever read it has come back to me and said, oh, my gosh, that changed me. And it stayed with me. And, you know, it's a scene that I come back to in my own personal life. And, you know, it's just like it's those things. And that's why it's like life. My husband and I have this joke about how we call them I meant to do that moments where, like, you just end up going and doing something, and the next thing you know, it's like one thing leads to another, and it was really God all along, and you didn't even think about it. It's like it wasn't like God said, walk this way. You just went that way. And it's like, when you are with God, and those things just lead you. And so that's why, in the book, they're little things like, that just change your life. And when you're walking with the Lord, it happens in so many different ways. And so the biggest thing I want to come across when I'm writing Christian fiction is never to be a cheesy poof, because so many times, like, Christian fiction can turn real cheesy and real not genuine. And I want to come across this could really happen, and these are real emotions that these people are shedding, and real things that are going on, and how it can relate to your life. Because at the end of the day, I want to write books that aren't just for entertainment; they're for people to go, "Wow, that really changed me."
I like too how you say that, because it kind of goes into the show description I did for the show, because there's a song by Tamela Mann called "Take Me to the King," and in the song there's a lyric that says, "I'm all churched out." And at this point, our main character John, he's churched out. He's tired of the church council. He's tired of church folks. I mean, he can't even. I mean, and he's the pastor. That's the sick part. He's the pastor. He's like, can I just become a salesman, a car salesman? At least I get paid for it. Probably more money than what he's getting at the church. And how people can get that way. We can get church out by routine. And sometimes that goes back to having our first love in Christ. And what happens with John is that the Lord gives him this opportunity, this massive opportunity to go see this event. And when it happens, it reinvigorates him in a way that he hadn't been invigorated before. And so even then, that small, subtle theme there is like, here, I mean, he messed up and now he's got to fix it again. But at the end of the day, the Lord wants us to have a new, active, ever-fresh love for him, which is why we have to stay constantly in his word. And some people, they stay constantly in church, not constantly in the word and his presence. And I completely understand that. I think some of us have been in that time where we've been churched out. We've been, I'm not going to church today. And I don't, because we get into the church and, and then the Lord, something will happen and it usually renews our relationship with him. And we find out, oh my goodness, ever new, ever refreshing, a multifaceted diamond. You can't stop. And that's what I really like about some of the things that being explored in an Ember in Time. And so it brings me to my next question, because this is where John was at. So what makes some Christians, I know I kind of gave you my idea. I want to get your point of view. What makes some Christians lose their passion for Christ?
I think that, and you said it best, when they realize, and how do I want to say this? I don't think that you start out in life and, you get saved and, Jesus can be your, absolutely, your first love. But sometimes when you're walking, you have a tendency to move your eyes from Jesus onto things of the world. And in John's case, he's just tired. He's tired of being a broke. He's tired of having to deal with his church. He's tired of feeling like his life isn't mattering. And I think that happens in a lot of people's lives. I think that happens in a lot of pastors. I think that as funny as some of his relationships are with some of his congregants, I mean, I laugh hysterically at some of the one-liners about how they were a church that, that didn't really hire him to change things. They just hired him to, bury the same people, marry the next generation. And I still laugh at the one-liner that they were the type of people that would tie change to a chair with dental floss. I giggle at myself on that one. But it's the same way. I mean, people can do that. They can get in such the routine, and this is monotonous, and this is not really what I signed up for. So forget that, God. I'm just going to go down and sell cars. This is just not cool anymore. I think that we forget. I was just on TBN, and this preaching hasn't aired yet. It'll air shortly, and I don't want to go through the whole preaching of this because it's quite long. But, with Rachel, she was wanted so badly in the Bible. In Genesis chapter 30 or 31, give me a minute, I think it's 30, wanted so badly to produce a child, and she's dealing with infertility. And it's all these things that she's trying to do because she's tired of waiting on God. And I think that we all get in that place. we've all been like, well, God, you're not doing this in the timing I want you to do it, so I'm going to go do it my way. And then we get more and more frustrated, and it's just like we keep running around the whole rat race, instead of waiting on God. And, in Genesis 30, verse 31 or 30, around there, it says that God remembered Rachel, and that remembered there actually means that he made her ready. And instead of allowing us to just go through the process, so many people disengage in the process. Really, God is preparing us for the next stage of our lives.
And whatever that be, whether it's hard times or season, it doesn't matter. He prepares us for that because he's going to give us what we need to handle the hard times. He'll give us what we need to handle the good times too. I know for myself, as I want the Lord to take me to a higher plane, I still want to make sure I'm grounded because it's so easy, especially in this world that we live in, to fall away from him. And that's one of the things I appreciate about John, is that as he's dealing with these things to make right, he starts to realize I need to fall more back on the Lord anyway. Now, he has this wonderful opportunity walking through biblical history, tasting the food, not having a good night's sleep because he's sleeping on the ground, wishing he had a Walmart. I mean, it was all kinds of things throughout the book that he wishes for, and yet throughout that, where I'm at in the book right now, anyway, he's just learning and trying to learn how to depend on God. I want to read a couple more comments before we get to the last segment of our show. Robert in Colorado Springs says, antediluvian, I cannot say that word, antediluvian. I know. My wife says I should pick Jesus' time, but dinosaurs, tough choice. Robert, thank you so much for your comment. And then Nathan in Traverse City, Michigan says, Elijah circa the showdown against the prophets of Baal. Nathan, thank you so much for your comment. And then C.W. Breyer says, day 5 or 6 of creation to settle the debate once and for all, literal or figurative. In a pit stop at the resurrection, my way back to the present. He's in Appalachian, New York. And C.W., thank you so much for your comment. What I like about this question, and that's what the book does for me, it just starts to open up this realm of where would I want God to take me to observe it. And then what happens is that I got kind of excited again thinking about it, and my blood just got going, and wow, God is so wonderful, so great. Wish he gave me a chance to do that. I won't mess up like he did. I would just watch because, we're so far removed from these events that for some of us just to see it, we'd be fine. We'd be like, okay, sold forever, And I think sometimes in this earthly realm, earthly flesh, we do allow our dots to get to you. So the reason my next question is, how have readers responded to An Ember in Time?
Those that have read it just have absolutely loved it. I have been able to come back to me and like, oh my goodness, tell me when the next one comes out. They just absolutely love it. And I think it's because, again, I think that for so long, Christian fiction has fit a mold, and I think this book is completely outside of the mold. And I think that Christian readers really want something different. They really want things that, are not just an Amish romance. Not like Amish romance is bad, but I'm just saying, outside of that mold and real and gritty and, there's healing in this book. There's spiritual warfare in this book. Hey, he's traveling through time. I have had one gentleman, and I know this guy, and we won't say any names, but he did, this would never happen, this could never happen, and therefore I will not read it. And I said to him, and that's fine. He doesn't have to. I'm not making him. But you know what? God does not exist in time. I'm not saying that he would make us all time travel. But what I am saying is that God does not exist in time. And so therefore, while this is fiction, and I'm not suggesting God would actually do this, it wouldn't be outside of the realm of possibility. And I think that, hey, I think it's cool.
Oh my gosh, I mean, totally missing the point. I'm sorry, totally just completely missing the point. It's the fact that God told me to do that, and I've had some wild dreams where I totally think it was the hand of God showing me certain things, and I've had wild dreams, and if the Lord ever gave me the opportunity to observe something, believe me, I am not going to doubt that. He would just finish going, would you like to go to? And I'll go, yes. I mean, he wouldn't have to finish the question. That's how excited I would be. And that's what I like about the book, is that it opens your imagination to that. It opens your imagination to, God is so great that he did take me here. I could go here. I could be there and see it. And that's what I really enjoy about the book is that wonder that's there. I know sometimes, like you said earlier, we don't want to get too cheesy with our Christian romance. We get so cheesy, we forget that there's wonder in God. There's fascination, and we can never quite understand him, because each time we think we get him, he gets more and more complicated, more complex, wonderfully to where we'll need all of eternity to just delve into his person, into his presence. And that's what I really like about that. And mind you, this is just the first part of the series, people. This is not the whole series yet. It's the first book of the series. So that leads to my next question as to what are some of your other projects?
Well, the second one is scheduled to come out in 2017. And that book, actually, his wife goes back. And so there's my little teaser. His wife goes back. The third one, we're still waiting on some numbers, but they both go back in the third one. So that's a lot of fun. I am working on a young adult trilogy right now. It's kind of a post-apocalypse, end-of-the-world kind of thing. And then after that, and it's kind of like in spacing right now, I'm trying to go back and read a lot of really good classics. Because I kind of sit down one day and said, I don't want just books that entertain. I want books that, like, transcend time. We think about certain books, and no matter how old they are, we're like, oh, my gosh, that's a classic. And so I've been rereading some of these classics. I just finished Gone with the Wind. I'm going to read the Poisonwood Bible. There's some other ones. I never read Journey to the Center of the Earth. I just read a Jules Verne. I always say classics except for old English ones because I can't get through that. Charles Dickens and I did not get along. But, like, one's for fun. And then I'm kind of sort of starting to formulate one after that. My kids always laugh at me. I usually have several books roaming in my head at one time. But I kind of think where I'm going with this. And so that's my goal. I want to produce books that are beyond just, well, that was a really fun read. And I sat down. I want, how can Christian fiction go up a notch? How can we make it that these are the books that everyone wants to read? We have the creator inside of us, and why can't we have, the first 20 books of a New York Times bestseller be all Christian fiction or whatever, So that's kind of my next job. But I've been working on, this book that I'm working on right now will be my 26th. Most people don't realize I've been really at this for a really long time. I've only had the 3 out, but I have 23 waiting in the background.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that as long as they see the light of day eventually. I don't hope you leave it hanging. Okay, good, because I don't want you to hold on to it. There's no point in holding on to it, Anna. So absolutely. I know you won't, though. This show, like I said before, is always about encouraging authors here. And I like how you said, why can't the first 20 on the New York Times bestsellers list be Christian? And you know what? I like that idea. So let's try to see what we can do to encourage our authors out there. Because when I was at the Slam Jam this weekend, I want to let our readers know, hey, just because it's Christian doesn't mean you know what the story is going to be about. You don't. Like, this story definitely falls into Christian fiction, but some people may say, well, you got time travel in there and back to time, and I'm looking like you're missing the point of the story. You're just missing the point. And so why not explore the different depths of Christian fantasy and stuff like that?
One of
go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, one of the ladies that read and reviewed my book, I happen to know, and she is a really big Harry Potter fan, and it surprised me. I'm not a huge fan of those books, and I won't want to get into all that, but it surprised me that tapped into that genre. I was like totally like, whoa, cool. It's like, why can't we produce it? The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and C.S. Lewis has done amazing works in the realm of Christian fiction, but it's time for us to make that modern again. It's time for, us as Christian writers to be like, you know what? Why not?
Exactly. I like that. We're getting ready to get to the end of our show, so before we do that, where can we find you online?
Google me. You will find me. My website is www.annamaquino.com. That is spelled ANNAQUINO.com. I am online all the time. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Amazon. You can find my books on Amazon. Come find me. I love to connect with my readers. I love to hear what's going on with them, and I really love my readers. They've been great.
This show, again, is always about encouraging authors to write, and I believe God gave every author the ability to write. It's a God-given gift. So I want you to speak to those authors who God has given them the gift to write, and for whatever reason they have not picked up the pen to write. Could you go ahead and speak to them today?
Yeah. My pastor, my husband and I are under Pastor Gary Andridicasi in Johnstown, Ohio, and Pastor Cassie is on a lot super major Christian, a lot of different programs. And he said something on Sunday that I have been quoting, and I want to say this to the writers. He said, your promise has to be bigger than your today. And what is it that God has spoken to you? If, I used to sit there and pretend, like I would visualize, I am at, a bookstore and I am doing a book signing, and I have been able to see that come to pass. What is God saying to you? And that has to be bigger in you than the turn downs. That has to be bigger than you than, the internal monologue in your head that says there's no way anyone will ever read this. You have to persevere. I've always joked that writers have to be like the rock in the middle of the brook that gets smoothed down over time, but they don't leave. They don't quit. Because, for me, my journey as a writer has been about perseverance and endurance, and God was making me the woman of God I needed to be. But you know what? So many times people come to me and say, oh, I'm supposed to write a book. God told me to write a book. Great. Where is it? Faces That Works is dead, and I'm sorry to say that, but it is. It's biblical, so I'm not really sorry. It's dead, and you're not going to be able to sell ideas. You need to put pen to paper. You need to sit down. You need to realize God, the same thing I had said earlier in the show. I kept saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. But then when she said, you are cursing your very destiny by saying that, I'm like, you know what? God, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know where this is going to come from. But nevertheless, if you called me to do this, then I can. You have to see yourself as that overcomer. You have to see yourself in victory. You have to see yourself writing the next bestseller. Because I believe the world needs to see those things. The world needs to see what it is that God has put on your heart to write. So many times people even come to me and they're like, well, there's a book in me, so why don't you ghostwrite it? No. If God hasn't, I've only done that once and helped somebody else out another time in my entire time of doing this, and I won't even tell people who that is. The reason why is because that was an extenuating circumstance, and God was telling me to do it. I'm not called to write your book. Somebody else, Parker J. Cole, isn't called to write your book. You're called to write your book. That's a cop-out. So you need to sit down and you just say, God, I may not see myself doing this, but you do, so give me your visions. Give me your words. There have been so many times I have sat at a blank screen and I have put on praise and worship music and I've said, God, I don't know how I'm going to do this book, but you do, so let me flow through it. A prophetic word is not always a thus saith the Lord for somebody else. It can be a thus saith the Lord for you. And sometimes I prophesy at the keyboard. I'm going to sit there and speak the words of God and what he's showing me to do. My name might be on those books, but I know who wrote it. It was my daddy in heaven. And I think that you just need to continue to push through that. I do not personally believe in writer's block. I think it is a cop-out. Because you sit around and you go, I have writer's block, I have writer's block, I have writer's block. Guess what? You have writer's block. You need to, again, put on praise and worship music, pray to the Lord, and say, God, nevertheless, move me aside as your vessel speaks through me. And then you will see God begin to flow. Is the process hard? Abso-flippin-lutely. Is there days that I had wanted to quit? Yes, I did. But, I several times back to the disciples. The disciples looked at Jesus one time. Jesus turned around, was frustrated, and Jesus said, what, are you going to leave us too? And the disciples looked at him. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been John. Said, where else would we go? When you get into this place with God, when you get into those moments, you get to the point where it's like, I couldn't quit now because where else would I go? This is the path that God has me on, and you don't want to live a life of regrets. So many people come to me, too. I hear this all the time. Well, God told me to write a book. I wrote a book, and then he didn't do anything. Well, what are you doing with the book? God can create those divine moments, absolutely, but you have to be at that door. He opens the door, but you have to get your little tushy at the door. And so you keep knocking on that door. God is faithful, has been faithful to me. He continues to be faithful to me, but guess what? He's no respecter of persons. So he's faithful to you too. You just have to keep going and refuse to quit.
And I can't think of a better way to end the show today, and I can tell you have been given the gift of ministry, because I was just so touched by everything you said, because we all get doubts. We all feel like, what's the point? I've been doing this for so long. It doesn't seem as if it's working for me. And then you just spoke into our listeners and to my spirit as well about trusting God, even if you get quote-unquote writer's block. And actually now I disagree about not saying writer's block doesn't exist, but I get what you're saying. I totally understand what you're saying. Yes. So I really appreciate you talking to our authors out there, because it is my sincere hope and prayer that if one person writes a story based off this show, if one person publishes a book based off this show, if one person is blessed and is invigorated to move based off what you said, then I have done what the Lord told me to do. And that is something I can honestly say is from the bottom of my heart. And so, again, thank you for speaking that exhortation to us and speaking that ministry into our souls. I hope we're all blessed by it. And with that, I want to say thank you so much for being with us on the show today. Thank you for giving us an ember in time. Thank you for letting us go through our imagination through time travel and just imagine what it would be like to see biblical history unfold before our eyes. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. It is always an honor. Anytime I get to go anywhere.
We have been talking to Anna Aquino. She is the author of the book An Ember in Time, and it's available right now from Lexia Publishing as well as on Amazon.com. I want to thank her so much for her words and for just helping us understand this. If you want to follow her online, you can simply Google her name. It's Anna Aquino, ANNAAQUINO. She's on Twitter at Anna M. Aquino. And you can go to her website, AnnaMAquino.com. Don't forget to join me Saturday for the Parker J. Cole Show, where I talk about all things in, out, and about the church, provide guest interviews, commentary, and so much more right here on WPJC 104.5. And then don't forget to join our newest member of the PJC Media Network, Deborah Lassiter, with Dovetails, and listen to testimony of how the Holy Spirit touches us in so many different ways. That's on Sundays at 2:30 p.m. right here on WPJC 104.5. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of The Right Stuff. I am the queen of Tuesday nights, Parker J. Cole, and you have a wonderful, blessed day. Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Right Stuff. Follow Parker online at parkerjcole.com. To hear this show and other shows, visit the show archive at therightstuffradio.wordpress.com. We'll be back same time next week, 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
The sweet sounds of summer, and there's no better way to enjoy them than with the refreshing taste of frozen drinks from Tim Hortons, like our new mixed berry smoothie, perfect for relaxing in the park. Or the new tropical orange fruit chill, great for enjoying the ball game. Or just spend a day at the beach with the new watermelon frozen lemonade. Well, time for another one. Chill out with any of our small frozen drinks for only $2. Try one at your neighborhood Tim's today. At participating U.S. restaurants, offer available for a limited time.
Tim's 2 for $4 breakfast sandwich deal is back, only at Tim Hortons. That means you can wake up to a great breakfast at a great price. Get 2 breakfast sandwiches on a freshly baked bagel, homestyle biscuit, or English muffin with either sausage or bacon for just $4. It's a deal so good, I'm on my way to Tim Hortons right now. Literally. At participating U.S. restaurants, offer available on standard breakfast sandwiches for a limited time plus applicable taxes. Single sandwiches at regular price.